What is up, everybody? We are back with our team reviews. We are on to the New Orleans Saints. We're on kind of the last third of the NFL teams. We're kind of breaking down each and every team. Today is August 15th, so there's still some time. A lot of things can happen between now and your drafts that are probably happening in late August, early September, 2-3 weeks away. Injuries can happen. We still have 2 more preseason games. Hopefully, no injuries. Dad, New Orleans Saints. Tough team for you in fantasy. Pretty straightforward team. Just overall thoughts on the Saints.
You know, they have some guys that are fantasy relevant, and starting with a quarterback, I don't think you're going to get anything different than what we've seen with his previous team, but receivers and running backs. I mean, there's some guys. I mean, definitely. We just did the New England Patriots, and they were honestly kind of a very boring team. Well, New Orleans isn't really boring. They got some players. If they, now we got to consider suspension for a running back and stuff like that, but it should be. They should be a very interesting team.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with you there. There's some interesting things to talk about for sure. As always, we this is more for redraft than anything. We will throw in dynasty stuff every now and then, real football, and we have our stats and rankings from half PPR point of view because that's what we play. But you can apply it to whatever you see fit. So as you can see, I just showed you the depth chart on the screen here. Quarterback Derek Carr, after what, 9 years with the Raiders, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it looks like 9 years with the Raiders. He is on a new team. I was surprised. Derek Carr only threw for 3,500 yards last year. That really surprised me because Devontae Adams had like 1,400 or something. So obviously it all went to him kind of. But that was his lowest since his rookie year, or no, his second lowest since his rookie year. He was more of a low 4,000s type of guy, low to mid 20s touchdown passes type of guy. He had 1 year where he had 4,800 passing yards, 1 year where he had 32 touchdowns. But, you can basically pencil him in for 44,000 to 4,200, and then anywhere from like 22 to 26 touchdowns. That's Derek Carr for you. I don't see that changing. Dad, are you comfortable with Derek Carr as your QB1 in a 1 quarterback league, or do you need to get something a little better?
No, I need something a little better. I kind of consider him just mentally in my head. Knowing there's 32 starting quarterbacks, he's like number 15 or something like that in my mind. And if I had him as a second quarterback in a dynasty league, that wouldn't be too bad. But but a 1 quarterback league, geez, I'm slightly nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, you said quarterback 15. He's going as quarterback 23. In the quarterback 15 range, you have like the Daniel Joneses, Geno Smith, Jared Goffs, and then you have Russell Wilson, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy, and then you get to like the Carr range. He's right around Stafford, Pickett, Derek Carr, which is kind of where I think he should be. So even lower for me than 15. I know that was off the top of your head, which is fair. Yeah, he's you don't want to go in with Derek Carr as your main guy, and if you do, then you want some kind of upside second quarterback. So to me, I don't want to. Jared Goff, I'm looking at it now. Jared Goff seems like the tier where he's kind of the last guy, the last bus leaving type of thing for me. If I don't have a quarterback and it's Jared Goff and no one else, I'm making it a priority to take him because after that, again, I just mentioned it. It's Russell Wilson, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford. It's guys that I'm not very comfortable as my QB1. So I put Derek Carr in that list, not comfortable with my QB1. But again, upside. If you want to take an upside guy, I'm looking at Anthony Richardson. If you want to take the shot at Anthony Richardson and you don't want to spend, so Anthony Richardson's going 108. So that is late round 8, early round 9. So if you don't want to spend an 8th round pick and a 9th round pick, both on quarterbacks, then you want to take Anthony Richardson in the 8th or 9th round and then wait a while and take a guy like Derek Carr. I'm okay with that because you have that high upside with Anthony Richardson, but that's kind of the only situation where I want Carr. To me, he's more of a bye week type of spot starter. So, but what's nice about Carr is he can make fantasy players go on the team. We saw it every year. He seems to have a top target at least in the passing game. And last year they had a top 3 receiver and a top 3 running back on the Raiders. And, you have to be a good enough quarterback to kind of make all that go. In terms of the backup, Jameis Winston, he actually might be better for the fantasy players or even a more interesting fantasy player. I don't know. He's that YOLO ball who throws the ball deep and doesn't really care if it's in triple coverage type of player. The nice thing about Jameis is that if Carr gets hurt, I don't think we need to worry too much about the fantasy players we have on the New Orleans Saints because I think Jameis is perfectly capable of supporting these fantasy guys. So I like the Saints quarterback position where there's some teams where that quarterback goes down and you're like, oh crap, my guys on this team screwed. I don't see that here. So onto the running back stead.
Definitely, yeah.
Interesting group. We have 3 guys really to talk about. Alvin Kamara is the first one. Is the first running back being drafted. This is the lowest you probably ever would be able to draft Alvin Kamara since after his rookie year, essentially. The guy's been a mainstay as a top 10 running back since he's been in the league. It's pretty crazy the type of production that Kamara from his rookie year, 6 straight years, has been basically like a top 10, top 12 guy. That's not the case this year. One, people are concerned he's getting a little older. His production has dropped. His yards per attempt is down. He is not catching the ball as much. He just turned 28. So it's not a nail in the coffin, but you're getting there. And then, of course, he's suspended for 3 games. So, Dad, I'll ask you, Alvin Kamara is being drafted as the RB26, and he's being drafted in the 5th round. Are you okay with investing a 5th round pick into Alvin Kamara, who potentially is like your RB3 at that point?
Boy, I'm kind of on the fence on this one. Just losing him for 3 games?
Yep.
That's kind of an impact. That's our fantasy season obviously is shorter than the regular season, so we just can't give away. You can't give away a week, that's just not how it works, and so just based upon that suspension, I'm not going to draft him that high. If he's there a couple of rounds later, yeah, I might consider it, but I just I seem to have a little problem just because of the suspension. It's not the production, or anything else. I know it's kind of going down a little bit, but he's still, the touchdowns weren't up there and things like that. But I don't know. The suspension kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, 3 games is significant. Like you said, that's most fantasy league regular seasons are 14 weeks, so that's over a 5th of your season gone. I think I don't know. I do think I would take a chance on him, and I think there's a chance he falls too because of the suspension. That people aren't going to take him in the 5th round. Because of that 3-game suspension. I think I'll take a shot on him at this point because, again, it's the cheapest you have ever been able to get him, and I still think with his pass catching ability, even if he's not the type of player he once was, he's still going to give you 60 catches. He's still going to touch the ball 150, 170 times on the ground. So I still think there's just a lot of value there. So I'll take the chance on it. Maybe it's dumb, but it's hard to see Alvin Kamara sitting there in the 5th round and be like, damn, this guy's could be a top 12 guy. I wouldn't be surprised at all. A couple guys he's going around, like Isaiah Pacheco. No, I'm not taking Isaiah Pacheco. Montgomery, I'd probably take Montgomery over him. Rashad White, give me Kamara. I know people are hyped on Rashad White. James Cook, kind of the same thing. Give me Kamara. I'll take what I know rather than kind of the unknown with those guys. So Brian Robinson, no thanks. So just kind of looking at that, those running backs going around him. I'm okay with Kamara in the 5th. Just kind of, again, you know what you're getting. Jamal Williams is, I guess, the next backup. They brought him in, gave him a pretty good chunk of change. The dude was pretty amazing last year with his 17 touchdowns and 14 of them from the 1 yard line or something. He's not the most talented guy, but I always mention this. There seems to be a trend of the running backs that we don't think are maybe very good. NFL coaches like these guys because they just get the yards that are there. They don't want a negative yardage run because that can kill a drive. Just like a false start kills a drive. A false start doesn't take up a down. -3 yard run not only is -3 yards, but you also lose a down. So they like these guys that sometimes just get the 3 yards, and they rather have that than the guy that tries to hit the home run. And Jamal Williams falls into that, and we saw he was valued. He got a good contract when running backs aren't getting contracts, and he's not young, he's not explosive or anything, but he gets the job done. So that I think he's going in the 9th round. Jamal Williams, are you kind of in on Jamal Williams, knowing that Kamara's gone for the first 3 games?
Yeah. Let's just talk about last year for a second. That was kind of a fluke. He had 262 carries in Detroit, and the 17 touchdowns. That's probably not going to happen. He very well could have 200 carries. Considering he's going to be starting 3 games and probably not sharing the load with Kamara that much. So, I do. I see production. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem drafting this guy. Would you say 9th round? He doesn't catch the ball. I mean, that's a negative, or they don't throw it to him, or something like that. But he's a he's a very positive player, and you don't see him. His yards per attempt are always around right around 4 yards. So there's nothing sexy there. He doesn't really fumble a whole hell of a lot or anything like that. But
no, 4 in his career, which is impressive.
Yeah,
and 3 of them came last year.
He had a lot of touches, but
yeah. Yeah, I like what you said. Obviously, you can't bank on 17 touchdowns. You just can't. I like what you said about 200-ish or more carries. If you think about it, he averages 4 yards a carry. There's 800 yards. He's probably going to be the goal line guy. And so, yeah, maybe not 17. But even if he gets 8 with those 200 carries, 800-ish yards, that's right around 150 fantasy points. And I'm just looking at it. That puts you right around in that RB2, flex rate, right outside the top 24. So even with not great, and that's not even catch, let's say he gets a few catches, he's right around that low end RB2 range. And I think you get no Kamara the first 3 games. We just talked about how much that hurts. That's a 5th year season. Well, you're getting an RB1 for a 5th season. You got to think about it on the flip side too. Think about if you're in week 6 and number 1 running back goes down, how much money are you going to put into his backup? And this number 1 running back's going to be out for 3 weeks. You're going to be spending a lot of fab dollars. You're going to be putting him as a waiver priority because there's value in a starting running back for 3 weeks. Sometimes running backs are so volatile, they get hurt. Sometimes you just take it as all right, I got this guy for 3 weeks and I'll worry about it 3 weeks from now, right? someone else is going to get hurt or go down. So just like we talked about, it's significant for Kamara missing 3 games. It's significant for Jamal Williams knowing you're getting an RB1 for the first 3 weeks. So, and you're getting him in the 9th round. So I like Jamal Williams. Like, and he's still going to be productive when Kamara comes back. That's the biggest thing. It's not just a 3-week thing. Kendrick Miller is the last guy to talk about. He has an injury. I don't know if there's been any updates about that, Dad. Have you heard anything?
Yeah, they're saying, I've seen 2 things. I just read one. He's out for a couple of weeks. He had a knee sprain. It was a little bit of a same knee he hurt in the bowl game last year. I also did hear that he should be ready for week 1. So I don't know. It's kind of, if you're in a dynasty league and you got this guy, this is somebody to hold on to. They drafted him in the 3rd round. So 3rd round for a running back, that's pretty significant. Where is he going to fit in to the New Orleans Saints this year? Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to get a big slice of the pie, but if he's playing, he should, during the Kamara suspension time, if he's healthy, he should be the backup. But, after that, he's back to running back 3 or so.
Yeah. And that missing those 2 weeks is significant for a rookie. Like, they need the training camp, they need the practice, and which, makes me more excited about Jamal Williams is Kendrick Miller is going to miss time. There was rumors about Kareem Hunt, he's still out there. So Kareem Hunt. I think New Orleans was like the first team that Kareem Hunt really visited. And then he went to like Indianapolis and then Minnesota. So I'm hesitant on Kendrick Miller. To me now, I don't think I'm going to draft him. Maybe a waiver wire guy. So the receivers, we have Chris Olave, who people are very, very excited about, and probably deservedly so. But Chris Olave is going really, really high. He's going as the wide receiver 13 and 28th overall. Dad, are you fine with that? Do you think you're drafting Olave at his ceiling, wide receiver 13, or do you think he has a potential to be even higher than that?
I think I'm all right where he's at, and he's, he should. I think he missed a couple games last year, but and they didn't have a wonderful quarterback situation in New Orleans. It was okay, but so I expect bigger things, more production, from Chris Olave. So he should be definitely wide receiver 1. Where is he going in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 2nd round?
It says 28th overall, so it's 3rd round.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'd be jumping all over that.
Yeah. Yeah. So realistically, we're talking about you could start your draft Justin Jefferson, Ramondre Stevenson, Chris Olave. That's a pretty solid start in my opinion. 2 good receivers. I do think it does feel like you are drafting Olave at his ceiling, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. Can he really get into the top 8 without injuries? I don't know about that, but by all metrics, Olave was better than Garrett Wilson last year. Yards per game, yards per cat, by everything. It's just that he missed a couple games. And Garrett Wilson, people are super high on. I know maybe the quarterback situation's better, but we've seen Carr. I mean, he supported Devontae Adams last year, who was, I think, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 in half PPR. So Derek Carr can support him. So I'm fine with Olave. Like I said, 3rd round, I'm kind of all in on him. Michael Thomas, man, I don't even know. He's like that abusive relationship, right? It's just you keep coming back to it type of thing, it was once good and it's been mostly bad, but I remember the good times. And it's been since 2019 that Michael Thomas has really done anything. That was his big year, and he hasn't done anything since. He's caught 56 passes since 2020. 56 passes since 2020. So that's 3 years. He's got 56 passes. So, man, all the reports are he looks good. He looks healthy. He looks good out there. And another thing is his first 2 weeks of last year were really good. First 3 weeks were really good. 5 catches, 6 catches, 5 catches. He had 3 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. He had basically 60 yards a week. It's like, all right, like you got to steal, and then he gets hurt and he's done, right? Any interest out in Michael Thomas? I will say this. His ADP is much lower now than it was, obviously, for obvious reasons. You can get him now in like the 9th round. Are you okay with taking a shot and saying, if he can stay healthy for 1 more year, I'm getting a huge bargain?
Yeah, it's inviting. I caught clips of his game over last weekend, and I go, wow, he looks pretty good to me. I don't even know what his injury was last year. I know the previous 2 years it was something to do with ankle related, and it's I don't know. Geez, if you could get something out of him that resembled 2019, which was 149 receptions, by the way. So that would be great. The volume, get, like I said, just a little slice of the pie out of this guy. But it's scary. Yeah, I would have to consider where he's being drafted and who else is available. But
even if you're not going to get 2019, in my opinion. Even if you get what we saw the first 3 weeks last year, where if you stat that out, very short sample size, 3 games. If you stat that out, that's 90 catches, 60 yards a game. So about 1,000 yards, and then probably the touchdowns, he wouldn't have gone at that pace, but 8 touchdowns. You're getting a huge value where he's at. I'm basically at the point where, like, if you want to take a chance on him, I'm not going to argue against anyone. The wide receivers he's going around: Gabe Davis, Treylon Burks, Kadarius Toney, Cortland Sutton, Elijah Moore, Odell Beckham. These guys don't have the potential Michael Thomas has. That's just the reality of it. Like, they don't. And so that's why I'm not going to fault anyone that wants to take that chance. In terms of the, there's quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Cousins and Daniel Jones going around him. Samaje Perine, Damian Harris, Zach Charbonnet are like the running backs. So it's just these names of like, yeah, you know what? I'll take a shot on Michael Thomas. And if he hits, all right. If he doesn't, I spent a 9th round pick. It's not going to kill my team, right? Last year, it killed your team because you took him in the 5th round or 6th round. The year before that, it killed your team because he was a 3rd round pick. He's not killing your team anymore, and that's where I'm back in on him, back into that abusive relationship, essentially. So that's where I'm at. If you want to take him, I'm fine with it. If you're like, no, not going to deal with that, I'm fine with that too. It's really how you're feeling about him. And no one really else to talk about. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is a nice 3rd receiver. He's kind of that field stretcher, deep threat kind of guy. If Michael Thomas does get hurt or whatever, then maybe Shaheed. He's more of a best ball guy to me. He can give you that absolute week-winning 2 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown type of performance. That's what he can give you. But really hard to know when to start him. Traquan Smith has been around. A.T. Perry is an interesting rookie that I liked. I think both of us liked from Wake Forest. We were looking at these rookies back in like March. We were like, oh yeah, this guy looks good. He seemed more of like a project receiver than anything. And he had a really good preseason. Again, it's preseason. You're going against guys that are going to be, ringing up your groceries potentially. But it's nice to see. I think he had like 6 catches and 70 yards or something, maybe more. Dynasty guy to keep an eye on for Dynasty, in my opinion. He should be on every Dynasty team. And no one else. So to the tight ends, you see Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and that is not a typo. Jimmy Graham is on this team. I had to double check when I when I saw the depth chart, I was like, wait a second, does he have a kid or something I don't know about? I do remember hearing him sign, um, and it was not a one-day contract type of thing. He is back on this team. It's not 2012 again. Jimmy Graham is back. But we'll start with Juwan Johnson. I think people are excited about him because Derek Carr played one drive, I believe, in that Saints their preseason game, and I think he targeted Juwan Johnson twice on the drive, and so people are excited about that. A lot of people don't know this. Juwan Johnson was the tight end 11 last year in half PPR, basically because of he had two touchdown games, which really boosted his stats. That Juwan Johnson, any interest at all as him as your starting tight end? He's going very, very late. So if you want to wait on tight end, he's a guy that you can wait on. He's going 190th overall. So he's going in like the 15th, 16th round.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem. Derek Carr, we know he throws to tight ends like Derek Waller when he had Waller. So this guy's obviously Juwan Johnson. Knows what he's doing in the passing game, and so I think I wouldn't have a problem, getting Juwan Johnson late in a fantasy draft.
Yeah. Second tight end, again, I always like to take the approach, unless I get Kelsey or Andrews or maybe a third guy, I'm just going to wait. I've mentioned this many times in these videos. The Evan Ingrams, the Pat Fryermuths of the world are going way too high for what they're going to return. A guy like Juwan Johnson, I'll take a couple dart throws on a couple guys. Juwan Johnson could be one of those guys. He can catch touchdowns. He's improved every year. He was, kind of looked at as a project, and he's gotten better every year, and that means something. Tight ends do tend to take a couple, 2-ish. Third year is probably where you start looking at tight ends to really start to break out, and that's what happened. He broke out last year, 500 yards, but 7 touchdowns. So he has that type of ability. Foster Moreau, great story about him being able to come back from it was cancer, right?
Leukemia.
Beat leukemia and came back. Has that relationship with Derek Carr, so that's something to keep in mind. So I'm not saying Foster Moreau's no one, but he does seem like a backup. Keep an eye on him if Juwan Johnson does go down, because I do think he can provide some value. And then Jimmy Graham, I don't even know what to think of that. Really, for you older fantasy players, he was amazing. Jimmy Graham was there with Drew Brees in the early 2010s, but he's 36 years old, and I don't even think he played last year. He didn't play last year. Hasn't had more than 500 yards since 2018. So, if anything, he can be a red zone guy. I think that's like, if you're drafting Jimmy Graham, you're hoping he just somehow catches 8 touchdowns. And then there's Taysom Hill, I kind of put as the Swiss Army knife, because he's labeled as a quarterback. He's labeled as a tight end. He lined up, I think, 150 snaps at quarterback last year, which was more than him lining up as a tight end. Fact of the matter is, Taysom Hill has value in fantasy leagues, because he's going to run the ball probably 3-4 times a game. And just think about, like, if you can guarantee your tight end to touch the ball 3-4 times a game, you're taking that. You are taking that. I mean, last year, Taysom Hill was the tight end 5. He was the freaking tight end 5. He has these boom weeks. He has a 30-point week, 15-point week. He has these boom weeks because he'll throw a touchdown. He'll catch a touchdown. He'll run a touchdown. Its problem is you just don't know when you're going to start him. Any interest in Taysom Hill, Dad, at all?
Yeah, I just don't know where he fits. I know probably as a tight end or something. I remember at the end of a fantasy year, football season, I always go back and look at where how guys scored, and there's always some shockers and and things like that. Taysom Hill is always, I think last year he had a pretty good amount of points, and it's just kind of like, geez, would I ever draft this guy? Probably not. I'm not saying he's not relevant because he is. I just don't know where the hell, that I want to use a draft pick on him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just so hard. And again, you don't even know when to start him because he has a 1.4 week, a 1.1 week, zero point 0.1 week, 2.5. Like, there's multiple weeks like that. And then you get a 30-point week, a 15-point week because he throws and catches and runs one in. You just don't know when to start him. Best ball, he's great because you don't have to start him. Lineup leagues, really hard to start him. And to me, he hurts everyone else. He hurts Alvin Kamara. He hurts Jamal Williams. He hurts Derek Carr. He hurts Juwan Johnson. He hurts all these guys, their values. He brings them all down a bit because there's going to be times when they're at the goal line and they bring in Taysom Hill and he throws a touchdown and that takes away from Carr. Or he runs it in and that takes away from Jamal Williams. Or he catches one and that takes away from Juwan Johnson. So he just kind of hurts everyone. So he's a little frustrating. But we are going to finish up there with the Saints. Semi-interesting team. Again, quick recap. We're okay with Carr as your QB2. I think we like Kamara. A little worried about suspension. Jamal Williams, you're getting some value there because you're getting a starter for 3 weeks. Olave, we're in on. Michael Thomas, hard not to take a chance on him in the 9th round. Then Juwan Johnson, maybe as a backup tight end. That's kind of where we're at with those teams. Or that the Saints, we'll be back with the New York Football Giants. We got the two New York teams up next. So we'll be back with those guys. So